So today we're going to be talking about the Unicron, the one to have, the best one. Um, so this is what this was originally Zeta Star Core was their name for it. But Zeta got a little ambitious, and they promoted this item right in the middle of Hasbro trying to raise money for their HasLab Siege-style Unicron. And normally, Hasbro doesn't have, as far as I understand it, Hasbro doesn't have like a legal leg to stand on when it, to say this looks like Unicron. You can't copyright the general appearance of something like this, which is why they can't go after third-party companies for all the other stuff at all. But although they would never win in court over it, Hasbro went after these guys, went after Zeta for stepping on them, and I think they pressured suppliers and they caused trouble for Zeta. And next thing you know, Zeta had pulled their item out of advertisement. They weren't promoting it anymore. And then there must have been maybe some kind of injunction, because next thing you know, Zeta, I assume Zeta, it'd be surprising if it was a completely different company, but you ended up with this new company called 01 Studio, or whatever they call it. It's very vague. And they produced it anyway, but they promoted it without the head and without the wings, which are kind of separate items anyway. I'll get into how this thing is designed and molded, which is very interesting to me. Maybe not to you. But just the basics. It comes with an instruction manual, it's not a very complicated figure, but it's a very complete manual. It doesn't necessarily do things in the order I would do them, which is why I did them differently. Just to touch on things here, this is the box it came in. It shows how they promoted it after their tussle with Hasbro. So they just they were like, well, that kind of looks like a head with the thing closed, so we'll call that the head, And they had these extra plates they put onto it to make it seem a little less like Unicron in planet mode. The back of the box shows the little logo for 01 Studio. And so here you have 01 Studio. And the name of the figure, I think, is supposed to be Cell, but who can say? Starcore was kind of a cooler name. But what's interesting is Unicron comes in that box. But then it ships with this completely separate box with a completely different company name, Armor Toys. And it's called Armor MB08. Do you remember the first 7 releases from this company? I don't. Anyway, so this had the wings and the head in it. The head is very cool. See if I can reach it. It's way up here. But the head is... I think it always was meant to detach, which is part of the reason they found it so easy to just take the head off and advertise it without. But it's a very cool head. It's got... it's kind of hard to make out, I guess, like this. But it's got reflective, like shiny silver or silvered green eyes. But they must be like Mylar or something. They're transparent, and so you can turn on lights that let you have lights inside his head. He also has a light on top for when he's in planet mode, so he can have the light coming out of him. It's well engineered. It works good. You can open his mouth, but when his head is mounted on the body, there's some limits to how far his beard will let his mouth open. So your mileage may vary. But I tend to leave the head on. It's probably even easier to transform without the head, but you end up with the proper effect at the end. There were people asking me, can you transform it with the wings remaining attached? And you can. In fact, someone pointed me to a Facebook, or someone had posted, it was one of these Transformer groups. So I posted this video on Sunday, and in the course of 24 hours, it had gotten a whole 5 likes on this Facebook group. I think they like it when the video is in line and they can just watch it. And by the end of the day, the stolen version of this that someone else had posted on the group, I don't think they stole it, but they found it somewhere, that had garnered like 8 likes. So naturally, the version someone stole from me is the one that gets more likes. But it was in line. It was posted to Facebook. It was just the speed run version of this video. And there was another video above that. I assume they also stole that, whoever did it. But there was a video above that where someone had done like a stop motion with like the classic white background. And they didn't do like the, where I'm trying to show like every step very clearly. It was a little more like all at once. But they left the wings on for theirs, and it was very clever, and I enjoyed it. But the question would arise, like, why wouldn't you leave the wings on? And I wouldn't leave the wings on because these videos are intended to show you how to transform this figure properly. I realize that's a little pedantic for some people, and they just want entertainment. But I'm not like a stop motion guy per se. I just don't want hands in the way, and I want the thing to stay in frame, and stop motion seemed like a good way to do that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time like rotoscoping a fucking dance routine or something. I just want to show you how the figure transforms and give you an overview of what it looks like in both modes, or all 3 modes, or whatever. But I take the wings off when I transform it because I'm not insane. That's the upshot of why I take the wings off. Let's catch up on comments since it is a live stream. I'm going to show this comment because I don't know why I don't even know. I can't Google Translate very fast, so you'll have to bear with me if you're trying to talk to me in a foreign language or non-English language. It's not foreign to you, is it? Have you seen the New Age Mista? Yes, it was okay. It was a little overpriced for what I wanted, and I couldn't get a good deal on it, so I passed on it. I don't know. I'm not torn between this and the HasLab version because in my book, I don't want a Siege-style Megatron or Unicron. Have you seen the... Here, let me see if I can change a few hearts and minds here, because the Hasbro one is ridiculous. So let's just take a peeky poo. Hang on a second. Gotta prep my workspace. Here we go. Images. And we'll do display capture. It's smaller than it used to be. That's interesting. I guess. I guess at some point I scaled it and now I can't unscale it. How frustrating. How did I do it? Man, I changed my resolution so now the display capture doesn't fill the whole screen for some reason, and I just don't know how much time I want to spend screwing around trying to fix it. Fit to screen? Well, that's better, I guess. So here's pictures of the HasLab Unicron, and let's just take a look. I mean, it looks okay from the front. We'll start with that. Here's what it looks like from the front. It's all right. I think, frankly, the HasLab Unicron's head is kind of derpy, and I don't like the way they molded that. But there he is from the front, and you can already see. I mean, look at this. Look at this mess that they left on the sides of the legs, and it doesn't end there. So let's try to find that back view. I mean, the planet mode looks real nice. The rings are bigger in relation to the planet, which is nice, and the mouth is kind of bigger in relation to the planet, which isn't exactly accurate, but I think they wanted to have their... it's got gearing, so they all open simultaneously, which is a fun feature, I'm sure. There he is, standing without his base. This is a rare photo, because usually you see him with that base up his ass, because apparently he's so big he can't stand. That's my guess. Here he is at a trade show, and he's got the base, of course, because he can't stand without it. But we got to get to those pictures of the back, because that's where everything turns into a hideous shame. Look at that. I mean, there's stacks of plates on his back, which makes him look like a turtle from behind. The planet jaws or mandibles are just visible. They didn't do anything about those. And there's stacks of plates behind the legs and beside the legs, which you were able to see from the front, and the ever-present stand, because I don't know that he can stand that well without it. So people go on and on about the Hasbro one is the right size for them. You know, they like the fact that it's super big. It's like 27 inches tall. It's the biggest. You know, you kind of expect Unicron to be the biggest figure in your collection, at least at the point where where Unicron comes out. But I don't care about size that much. This thing is plenty big. I mean, I got my camera pointing up, but it's 19 inches tall, not counting the wings. And it's as big as any of the modern combiners. You know, it's made by Zeta, so this is kind of the scale they're comfortable with. And it's fantastic because I don't try to keep in mind what the Hasbro look like from the back. Clean. They've hidden away almost all of the sphering. So on the back of the legs, you can kind of see like a big chunk of the surface sphere. But it's not bad. I mean, even like from the side, it's tucked in. It's not a stack of plates like the Hasbro one. So for my money, I say this is the better option than the HasLab version. But you know, if all you care about is the size of it, because you can't care if you prefer the Hasbro one, you can't care about the look of it. Maybe planet mode. I'll give the Hasbro one the planet mode. Looks okay in planet mode. I mean, it had to with all those plates and stuff. But if you don't care about the way it looks in robot mode, and you don't care about a clumsy, almost shamefully incompetent transformation, lazy, then, you know, get the Hasbro one. It's bigger and it looks good in planet mode, and it's only $800, so no big deal. This one was this run of it MSRP'd at $400, but my understanding, there's no price announced, but there's a second run you can pre-order off of Show Z, for example, that is apparently going to be a little cheaper than that. So keep an eye out for the price on that one. I don't know how much cheaper it's going to be. It would surprise me if it got all the way down to $300. Because, I mean, you're basically buying a combiner with a little less of the complexity of engineering for the individual figures to be able to turn into robots. But it's, you know, big. It's pretty heavy. It doesn't have a huge die-cast presence, and I don't think it should. Die-cast is a little overrated. We'll catch up on some comments. I'm never going to get through this, am I? You're going to have to convert inches to centimeters yourselves, because you guys might have a fancy metric system, but the inches system got a man on the moon. So good enough for a man on the moon, good enough for me. Plus, it's just what I'm used to. No, I didn't get around to those videos, Stein, looking at Devil Savior's versions of Long Haul and Scavenger. I really do have to look at those before I make my decision whether or not to pay off the pre-order when they come up. Yeah, I have a Discord. I love that model, but I hate that kibble. Too much kibble. Yeah. Okay, so you must be talking about Pack Lives Matter. That's funny. Yeah, I got mine on pre-order too before the price actually kind of, like, they thought it was going to be one price and then people paid off their pre-orders. I only paid off my pre-orders not to be sneaky or anything, but I paid it off because someone contacted me from the shop and they were like, you know, here's the price or whatever. I was like, does this mean it's coming in soon? This is back in like March. And they were like, yeah. So they didn't understand me entirely. So I went ahead and paid it off. I paid off the pre-order before the price changed. And, you know, it worked out pretty good for me. I didn't have to pay nearly full price. But I would. This is very good. This is a very good figure. I should transform it. It's going to be a little tricky to show. This, by the way, so you straighten that out. One of these, not the other one. So this one can only go to 90 degrees. But one of these can flip around a full 180. The other one kind of tabs into itself. So that's done. That's ready. You fold these down I was a little confused at first because I was like, oh, they won't mate up. But you fold them down like that. So this is half of the ring. If I knock this thing off the desk, the live stream is going to end, and you may never see me again. All right, so we flip around the one that can be flipped around, and we pin the rest together, and we flip these guys in. The guy that had to stop motion animate this with the wings on, I'm sure he had to cheat, because he showed the wings kind of, you know, these parts, these halves kind of going into their holes on the planet mode and then merging, but it is so much easier to pin together the back part first, like that, and then bring the post together. And it's because of that, it's a lot easier just to kind of finagle this thing into position after you've already formed the ring, because there's a lot of give. You can get it into position. There's some bend and give, and you can get it done. It's no big deal. But we'll set that aside for now. All right. So I've never tried to transform them in front of this camera on this setup. So I'm going to try to keep it in frame, but again, that's why I do the stop motion, so that I don't have to, or that I can very carefully keep it in frame without reaching past a camera with my arms. It's going to be a challenge. I'm going to get all sweaty doing this. Anyway, so we'll bring them down a level. Get those lights off them a little bit. A little too bright. All right, so what I like to do is there's a little more space behind his head than in front of his head because of the shape of his face. So I like to put the horns behind his head. And I like to take care of the collar right away. And I'm going to... So you have to kind of sneak this stuff by. It's a lot easier. In fact, a lot of stuff is easier if you go ahead and extend his arms. Nice strong ratchets on die-cast armatures. But I'm just going to extend his arms out of the way. And that gives me a little more space to do that. And we got to flip all those little fins up. And they can be a little hard to pick at with your hands, but they're just loosely jointed. They're not a big deal. Yes, cover up the light while you do it. I think you guys get the point, so this is going to be a little boring if I don't just hurry up and do it. But it helps to extend all the fins, or the teeth, or whatever. So we'll get them all out there. And then these halves flip around 180 degrees, so you can see how it's coming together as a circle. And I wasn't really sure how to handle his head at first, but you can almost seal this up around his head. But it just helps a lot to have this thing back out of the way before you move on to the rest of the transformation. So I like to have that back down and just about ready. The back it's all identical. I'll go into the molding here, but like this part here, which is a right chest half, if you will, everything associated with it, all they had to do was make a mold of this and then print it out twice, because there's the other one. And they made a left chest part, and they just printed it out twice. So there's very few parts that aren't printed twice. I say printed, but molded, or whatever you want to call it. There's very few parts that aren't printed twice. The only exceptions are, I suppose, the whole center body section has a lot of single-use parts. So the waist down here, that's just a single-use part. This skirt component is a single use. A lot of the center stuff, the torso areas, but there are a lot of parts of the torso that are double printed, like the chest halves, this interior, the little belly window. And in the cartoon, apparently he really did have a six-pack on his back too. So it's cartoon accurate, but very clever how they saved themselves a ton of production costs, because the molds, producing the molds is one of the most expensive things in this business, other than design costs. And to be able to produce like maybe just a torso mold or a separate mold just for the head and wings, which are unique pieces, to have a mold that's like all the other pieces, or just a couple of molds that are the other pieces. It cut their mold production in half. So it saved them a lot of money to do it that way. And it's very cleverly designed. But everything is symmetrical. Even the hands, they have thumbs here, but they have gap fillers here because the thumb could just be installed on the other side of the hand. So the hands are identical. The legs, the feet are identical. The ankles are oriented differently. You know, this one goes in and back out, and this one goes in and back out. Or you could turn it around the other way. I can talk about that. But even those are printed twice because you can see on this one, you can see the hat screw. And on this one, oh, these have hat screws anyway. Well, here, hold on. Here's a better example. The shoulders. On this one, you can see the hat screw. And on this one, you can see the base plate that it's screwed into. So even the die-cast shoulders are the same part, just, you know, turned around the other way. Rotationally symmetric, if you will. Anyway, let's get them transformed a little more. So this comes up, and the mandible can flip out and just rotate around. And then this is, you know, this is a bit of a Fans Toys thing, but unlike Fans Toys, at every step of the way, it'll just hold its position like a proper figure in my book. But you bring this down, and it kind of tabs in around the mandible piece. I'll see if I can turn them to give you... Oh, it won't do it just yet because I haven't sealed the mandibles. We'll go to the front. You'll see what I'm talking about. I think I can go ahead and seal these together, so let's do it. Yeah, they kind of slide on. And they're single use too because they're asymmetric. But this actually tabs in there, and I'll show you. So it tabbed in. It's a fairly loose fit, but it's not required for like the structural integrity. It's real clever how they did everything. But I'll go ahead and open these chest panels out, just like the back. It's identical. And we flip this out, and it's identical. This and this. But of course, it's mounted on the other side, so it flips around from the other angle. But just got to get both. There we go. So we got those out of the way. We're ready to move on to the next part. It helps to have a pry tool. I like to use these nylon spudgers that you can get. I got them. They're like for cell phone repair. This one's gotten a little beat up over time because of how I've had to use it, but better this gets beat up than the figure. But the key thing here is it took me a minute to realize this is how the transfer, because I was like, the head sticks up too far. What? I couldn't figure out how the head platform moved down. And the whole thing is this thing lifts and the head just stays with this part. So now the head is lower. You can close all the little pedals now and you're fine. I'm sorry, I can't keep track. It's hard to keep track of the comments. You guys are mostly talking to each other, I guess. Maybe mention my name if you're asking me a direct question, but don't abuse it. I have not yet purchased any movie figures yet. Well, yeah, if they made a Unicron in ratio with the MP figures, he'd be the size. He wouldn't be the size of a car. Unicron in MP scale would be the size of like an office building, easily. So anyone that talks about the Hasbro one's more to scale, no, it's not. It is exactly as far off from being the scale as this thing is. In fact, it's as far off as a Legends figure is, because you're talking about an office building sized figure. And so a figure this big or a figure this big is just about as far off from being the scale as you can be. So I don't quite follow that argument. I think they just want to tell themselves they made the right choice when they didn't. So once you get this opened up and lifted, then we have to turn this part. It's real clicky, but we want to turn this part 90 degrees. And we just turn it exactly 90 degrees. And then you turn the waist 90 degrees. And I like to turn them both in the same direction so he kind of unwinds. Now that we can reach out and do this one. This untabs and flops down. That's why it kind of lifts magically in the video, because it doesn't have like an in-between. It was hard to get anything to lift it up. And so we lift this up, and then we're going to go 90 degrees one more time. And then there's a hair that got in there. And then you fold this. You have to kind of sneak those by, and then you can straighten them down so they fit there. So that's tucked away. And now we're we're pretty much done with the torso, and we're ready to do the legs. Like the instruction manual tells you to go ahead and explode out these panels first. And it seems easy to do that first, but then they're just in your way the whole time. So don't touch them yet. It's not worth the trouble. So we're going to straighten the leg out, the knee at least. Doesn't matter much what you do with the leg. But we want to rotate this so that it's down. And this is one of those things where if you turn the leg can go all the way around. And if you turn it one way, you're going to end up with an ankle rocker that, let me see if I can show you this. An ankle rocker that kind of goes this way, soft, which is what I prefer. Or you could have an ankle rocker where you have to extend the armature before it can go sideways, which I don't prefer. So to my mind, this rocking makes this the inside of the leg and not the outside of the leg. But you could turn it either way and it wouldn't matter. Anyway, so we're just turning this part this way. And then we have to come up with this. Now I've seen people completely extend this flat and then bring it around and then unflatten it. There's really no point in doing that. And I think it's going to be right about here, right about 45 degrees, where we can just go ahead and turn it around. Ugh. It's hard to do on camera, I'm sorry. But we're just turning that around. And you'll know if the leg doesn't quite impinge on that button there. Because it would go past it if it could, if you went one more notch. Now these things flip out. I should have probably done them a second ago so it was a little more obvious, but they just have little double armatures, and it helps to kind of lean them so there's a angled gap there. The lights end up way too close to this thing at this range, so I'm sorry. And then there is kind of a clearance issue. Let's see if we can just put this down like I did in the video. All right, so it helps to use a spudger or something to separate these, but I mean, technically what you're doing is you pull these out. They're actually tabbing in behind the joint there. There's a little bit of stress marks there, but I don't think it'll ever come to a problem because it's so big. But you lift up on this a little bit, and then they can pop apart. So, and these go out, and you flip these around. Really clever how they made the knee ornamentation just another part of the sphere ultimately. So they're all sphere parts. These parts don't really have a place in planet mode, so they're kind of disposable. I like to turn them around this way, so the shorter part is oriented towards the knee and the longer part is oriented away from it. It just helps you make clearance easier. Now the idea is the whole leg is going to flip down like this, and it's going to slide into itself. These were holding the front, and then we have to turn it around anyway. And then this plate is holding the back. So now the slide, so it's not a hard slide, it's real easy. And so we're going to bring it down. The clearance problem we're going to have is with these belly plates, or these ab plates. What do you call it? Lateralis plates? Flank plates? But the idea here is, I just want to make sure that I have the... You just want to make sure the leg is straight, but you just want to make sure these things actually clear the bottom of the belly there as you collapse the leg. So you have to kind of collapse the leg past those where you can. And then you can start bending the leg down. Okay. We have to do the foot. I just leave this alone for now. It helps to go ahead and turn these around. So we're just turning them around. And the main foot just folds up a couple of notches like that. So that's the foot out of the way. And I like to extend the foot a little bit, just a little. It makes it off center. You can see, let me see if I can flatten this. So it pushes the foot in a direction when you do that, but it's not the end of the world. And then this part is tricky. We're going to go over this in some detail for a minute. But you're basically trying to get these, you see this this claw is going to go around this molded nipple. And to do that, you have to bend this in. And let's see if we can sneak a light in there. But you're putting it in and bringing it up. And yeah, So let's see if I can get a light to penetrate all the way in there. You see it tabbed. There it is. So you tab the far one, whatever suits you, and then you can tab the near one a little easier because you can see it better. But there's the near one. You're going to tab it. And there the leg is put away properly. To untab them, you could yank on the leg, and that's fine. Maybe you'll get away with it. I hate yanking on where it could run away. And so what I like to do is I like to take this angled spudger. It has a nice long lever on it. And that's part of the reason I like having the foot out of the way. But if I want to get this gap started, I can put the spudger right where the gap is. And it's a little tricky because you have to, it's just tricky. It just is. But I like to get a spudger in there, and then I tap on it with I have a multi-tool, and I just tap on it. But I wish I could give you a better view. I'm sorry. But like here, I'm putting the spudger in right there. Right there. And right near the claw. And then you give it a little tap, and it pops the claw off for you without any risk of having a runaway yank. So I don't know. Maybe other people have better techniques, but that's what I came up with because I happen to have the right tools for it. Anywho, we move these out of the way, and then these actually have holes on them that go on pegs there. You see the peg. There's the peg. And so you just flatten this thing out onto the peg as you can. That gets it out of the way of the arms later, so just good to do. Now before you start stitching anything else together, you need to retrieve the big panel inside here, and everything's out of the way for that at the moment. We just rotate that around and put it in position there. And before we lower it, we want to make sure, and I've just not found anything other than a blade to get this thing without endlessly picking at it. But there's a tab here. And this thing is so bright, I think I can get away with going down a notch with it. I'm just going to do that. There we go. But there's a little tab there, and if you can get under the front edge of it, then no problem pulling it out. But it's going to retain the planet shell here in a second. So we've angled the leg up. Very clever that one leg goes on one side, the other leg goes on the other side. The Hasbro one is, in that sense, is just like the old Armada Unicron, where both legs go together and then fold up simultaneously onto the same side. Doesn't make sense. What they're doing here makes so much sense. Anyway, so we bring this down and make sure it tabs. There's like some tabs up here. You can see it collides a little bit at first, and then it pops. We just make sure that it gets down flat, and then we can tab that in. And now we're done there. And then we can take these, and we want to rotate them. They were rotated flat like this so that they could fit in that channel, this flat channel. You basically want to rotate them 90 degrees, and then you just arrange this pedal up like this. So it goes 90 degrees and then up, and it kind of tabs in there. We're going to do the other one the same way. I wish I had more hands. I don't have enough hands. Good Lord. So it has to be flat facing me, and then we can tab it in. Okay, tabbed in. So you see how those go. And then we can go ahead and lower the leg. Word of caution, the front of the foot will kind of get caught under this edge here. So when you go, if you go to pull the leg out like I do, you just make sure you're kind of biasing it forward so it gets past that lip. But we're just putting the leg down like that. This foot drooped a little bit, so it's not lining up. All right. This lifts up out of the way. And I don't know when you necessarily have to do things. You can go ahead and put these away since we have them in our way. But it tabs here, and then it tabs real simple, you know, above. So just make sure it ends up under that foot pedal. Pedal. It's like a Latin joke. This goes in like that, and then this separates into two parts. This part floats out and flips around, and so kind of fascinating. It turns from a pointy part into a straight part. And that just goes down like here. This goes down here and tabs into the ring flange there. And then this can come up, rotate around, not all the way up, but just enough. And then we sneak it in there. And now we've done one leg, because we're not doing these until the end. Anyway, I'm going to try to take a peek. I'm going to take him away for a second, I'm sorry. It's just going to be easier to do if I'm just holding it for a minute. I just got to do the other leg. It's exactly like I just showed you, so it's the same thing. And we'll take a peek at some comments here. Good Lord, that's a lot of comments. You people are making it hard for me. Yeah, the head would be the size of the car. That makes sense. You'd have to invite your friends over with like a derrick and like a crane to transform it. Yeah, the scale was all over the place in the cartoon movie, just like it was in the cartoon show, so. Yeah, Hasbro didn't put in a high level of effort. They were just like, we're going to make it big, and there's some people that are like, my goodness, it's big. It's big. Good for you. You made it big. That's all you wanted to do. Otherwise, it's kind of embarrassing, but it's big. That was the hip ratchet. And that's bringing the hip ratchet around. I mean, if you want to see how this leg is done, then you can watch the video or just rewind this video later. Because it's the same thing. One of my favorite things about this thing, though, is the fact that it's so crazy symmetric. It's fascinating how symmetric this thing is. Even in terms of production, like I said, you can print out every part twice and you've got most of the figure. Alright. He is tricky, though. The hardest thing about him is the sheer managing a figure this big. So I've got him in my lap right now, but it's just such a big figure. It's hard to manage, and it's really rough on your hands to do some of this stuff because they're big, heavy parts, and you need to like really kind of get them going. And real pain in the ass in that respect. I can imagine the Hasbro one, it seems like the part of the reason they leave it on the stand all the time is that you really can't transform it without the stand helping you manage the figure. So that whole thing is designed to transform on stand. This one doesn't need a stand because it can hold itself up. But it is pretty big for what you're trying to do with it, so it's a challenge. Right now I'm getting the hooks, the claws and nipples together that hold this thing together. There we go. And we can lower down the shell parts. Getting close. It's going to come back into view in a minute when I'm done with all this shit. Tab those in. I'm bringing in the chest plates now. Chest plates and tab those in. There we go. Now, hopefully I didn't break off any of his little arm things. Pain in the ass to manage those. Frankly, it's easier to deal with if you don't put all those spikes all over him, but whatever. And flipping out his foot, clever little foot thing. Putting that away. Getting it to keystone tab into the top. Not too hard. And then we flip that little panel around. And it doesn't want to seat until the foot's out of the way. There we go. Alright. Alright, ladies and germs. So we got him into armed planet mode. Let me bring the camera down now that he's shorter. Get that light out of my face, put back on the figure. Whew. Yeah, you can dream of Jinbao doing KO upscales. Jinbao plays it pretty safe, and they always seem to be doing upscales of Hasbro figures. I think part of the reason is that these people know each other, whereas Hasbro, the designers, are maybe 6,000 miles away. And so they don't feel, I guess they don't feel like they're stealing from anyone they know. But you hardly ever see KOs of third-party figures. So I don't know that I'd hold my breath for an overscaled KO of that. Although, you know, they did bring the production cost down for the mold. I am not getting the HasLab version 2. I like figures that are clever and elegant. And there's nothing that strikes me as clever and elegant about that figure. It's just brute force. It's like they brought in someone from Fans Toys to design it. Like, I just forced the plates over here. Although, I don't know, that's unfair to Fans Toys because they do nail the robot mode as opposed to the Hasbro version, so they're not even that good. They flail at the design, the transformation design, in order to achieve something that doesn't even look like Unicron. So, congratulations, Hasbro, you did it. Yeah, I don't have a stage big enough to put it on. Is that 991 stupid from Sling Blade? Because that's hilarious. On Shozi, someone actually has him sitting on a doll's rocking chair. Yeah, it's not surprising. A little basketball. He's about the size of a basketball. He's a little smaller. Well, I'll tell you what I want from a KO. This guy is so big and hard to manage because of his size. I would be perfectly pleased, because you remember I said I didn't care about scale, I just want it clever. I would love it if this company or someone else came out with a downsized KO of this. Exact same figure, but like leader size, so it's just easier to manage and more fun to transform back and forth without having to manage such a big figure. Anyway, I'm just getting these flank panels pegged in properly so they're out of the way of the arm. You can do it this late in the game, and it's not a big deal. But we'll transform the arm now. We're going to rotate it like this, and we're going to put the hand facing backwards. And the hand configuration isn't terribly important. I've had some figures where, like, you know, the way the hand packs away, you got to pack it away just so, but, you know, there's plenty of room in this thing, so they didn't sweat it too much. But I like to kind of fold it up like that. And then this flips out. Like that. That. And then you can stand it up. I like to have these rotate 90 degrees with it, so there's plenty of clearance to do this. And then we're just going to fold in a flange there. Let me just show that to you again. It went fast. But that folds in, and then the hand folds in. If you don't do that first, the hand's not going to fold in. Plenty of room for the hand. We can just fold this down and flatten these out. So these end up still displaying their ornaments. Ultimately, the hand configuration, you're going to want this. It's a double joint, which is nice. This one is a lot tougher, and that's a good mnemonic device. You're going to want it all the way up, because the only thing you're going to bend is the secondary joint closest to the hand to get it to go into shape for planet mode. So just keep that in mind. It won't line up properly if this one's engaged at all. It has to be completely flat. All right, so getting these untabbed, it's surprisingly difficult considering there isn't much holding them in, but I just like to get something in there and set them free. So they're gonna lay out flat like that. We can keep articulating the shoulders as needed to make room. This can be a little tricky because there's actually a couple of posts there. There's one, there's two, and this whole flap has gotten ahead of those posts in its final robot mode configuration. So there's a little double joint inside there. You just want to lift up on this and slide it backwards past those posts, and then you can flip it up, and you can see the double joint there. There's just a very slight bit of a double hinge there. You flip out these panels, which at this end of the planet aren't as big as the other panels have to be, so that's nice. And then this was tabbed in here to create the box of his shoulder. but we're going to untab that. We're going to turn it around, and it's going to kind of cover up his upper arm. Now these two come together, and I have successfully tabbed these tabs when it's all the way into planet mode, because you can totally turn it into planet mode without dealing with these. But it's a lot harder, and it's a lot trickier. Right now is the easiest time to do it, so we're going to flip out. I can never seem to get this to come along, but you flip these out of their resting holes. And then if you kind of try to angle this down a little bit, you can get a good angle to snap this in. So untabbing them can be a real pain. I've got a somewhat destructive method because I've left a scratch there and there. But I just find if I'm on the inside, I like to get to the tip of my knife, like right at the end of the armature to give me maximum leverage. And then unfortunately, I'm kind of levering against the blade of the knife. So you could probably use like a screwdriver or something and not cut the figure, but I don't know. I don't care. And I had to do it at arm's length. Figures always get a little messed up when I can't gently do them when I'm stop motioning. So once this is in place, we're just, that whole shoulder joint, we're just getting it in there. Those posts that I mentioned earlier, we're going to want them to feed into these holes, and these angled puzzle piece things are going to get into those holes. So we're just going to press it in there. It just doesn't want to cooperate at arm's length like this. But you should see the pegs through the holes, and we're not seeing them, so I'm just gonna, so those two pegs are gonna get fed forward into those holes. There we go. So you can see it appear there. It's tricky, 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 tricky. It's fun to rock around. Anyway, I feel like I've just missed, I've screwed something up. I'm sorry. It can be hard to get that to line up, but not that hard. There we go. No. Come here. It's colliding right there. It's like that peg got in there a little too good. There we go. The collision. There we go. I'm making a hash of this because I have to do it at arm's length the whole time, and it's fucking frustrating. All right, be back in a minute. I need to do this where I can manage the weight of it properly. Just put that back, retab this again, tab the leg again. And let's just see if we can get this stupid arm tabbed in properly. This whole thing got turned around somehow. That's fucking annoying. Jesus Christ. All right. This popped off. Okay, good job. All right. Oh my God, that popped off. Where'd it go? These little antennas are a real pain in the ass. I think the smart thing to do would be to not try to have them on while you're trying to transform, especially the first time, before you get used to it. I just wish this fucking would stop fighting with me. There we go. Oof. Anyway, sorry. So you should barely be able to see the peg. In my case, the peg was coming way through, and it was causing all this stuff, this seam here, to collide. So the peg should not be visible except when you really kind of look for it. But if you don't see it at all, you don't got it. Then there's some tabs and slots here on the side that kind of help anchor everything in place. There we go. Now you have to get the arm. Remember I said we're just going to bend at the second joint, so you just have to be careful to only do that. But this just kind of sneaks in here at a slight angle and tabs in. And then we'll just retab these. All right. And then these come down. They also have some tabs and slots that they engage with. So you can do those. All right. And then we do the bottom flaps. We'll do all those at once here in a minute. I'm just going to do the, oh, and you can flip this out. There's a bit of a gap there, and this thing comes down to the equator to actually fill it out. And pegs onto a tab there. So there's still a little bit of a gap there, but you know, I'm not gonna give them a bunch of shit over it because it's still pretty clever. I'm just gonna fold all these things down so they don't get lost. All right. So I'm going to do the other arm. I'm just going to fight with it here while I glance at the comments. Again, apologies. This is a big figure to try to manage at arm's length. Aw, I didn't even know I could make that. I didn't know that you could send money. Well, cool. I'm glad you can. I didn't even know. Thank you so much, 991. That's awesome. Did you answer my question? Is your thing from Sling Blade? Because it sounds like it's Sling Blade. Hasbro's a joke. 3 versions of Masterpiece. It should be a masterpiece to start. That's funny, Tristmox. A finger and hand exercise manual. No, King Toys, as far as I know, hasn't shown a picture of combined Thunder King yet, so it's still a bit of a mystery. There's always the suspicion that since they teased sort of a gorilla, that the legs might actually be formed, you know, the thighs might actually be formed by the gorilla, or they just might have like the classic sort of Zeta, you know, combiner legs coming out of nowhere, but the jury is still out on that. Nobody knows. I don't believe they've released. I'd be very curious to see it if they have. So, if one of you hep kids is in the know, then you tell me. See, I forgot to. If you don't fold that flap behind the hand away, you can't rotate the hand around. That's a rule. That is a hard rule. Just popping those sides of the upper arm loose. Walking the top of the upper arm past the 2 pegs, like I mentioned, so I can open it. Flipping around the thingamajig to cover up the upper arm. Opening up the flaps. Flipping out the little clips, which are kind of unnecessary. The clips, I mean, they do hold the parts together, but you don't have to do the clips. You don't have to. In fact, I've transformed the entire thing and forgot to do the clips. And, you know, it didn't turn out to be a problem at all. I was able to get them to snap. But, you know, the thing was holding together just fine without the clip snapped. So if you wanted to skip these very difficult clips, then you could. You could, and you could get away with it. They're a trick to snap, though, I tell you that. Hardest thing on this thing. Alright. I'm just seating the yellow pegs best I can. There we go. Sides. And then we got to get the lower arm to pop under the waist skirt there. Only takes a click to do it. And then we can snap all this together. There we go. And there we go. I'll show you a perfect example of the problem you face. Here, let me get ready. It's ready to show you. So the upper arm, remember I told you that upper segment you can barely see there, but it is bent, which means when you try to bring this whole thing together, basically it's too low. It's too towards the core of the planet. And so you have to make sure, I might have to untab this just to get it. Come on now. But you have to make sure it's actually extended. And that joint, that part of the joint is very stiff. And so it can be very hard to get it to do it. But I'm just going to fix the problem first. So we're going to get it up there. So now it's all the way up and we're only bending at the second joint. And that's the trick. So it's just as well I screwed that up because I can show it to you. We're just going to reseat the pegs and reseat the tabs, and then we're going to fix that hand peg. No big deal. And then the whole thing sets a little higher. I need to fix the compression on it. All right. This thing has a lot of little pointy towers all over it too. It's a little painful. All right, make sure I haven't lost any of my antenna. Antenna check. Initiate antenna check. Be super nerdy about it. All right. Let's get the light back over. And like I said, you can save these for last because otherwise they'll just be in your way the entire time. But they're very clever. You flip this out, planet. They're just, and that's why I do them last, because they're just ornaments. They're just plates to cover up the gap. But oh, how they hide them. So clever. And they reuse so much of the surface of the robot to make the surface of the planet. It's just ingenious, and I really love it. I've always wanted a sphere bot that was done this way, that was done clean. And so it's very nice to have one. The perfect sphere bot, at least if you want it to turn into a Megatron. So there's the planet mode completed. We'll do a quick discussion about getting the wings attached, which is trouble. There was a bunch of, there's like a stand to stand them on, and I don't know where I put that bag. Well, I'm not going to worry about it right now. How about that? But the way I get the wings on, or the rings on, is I just kind of tab one of these, and then I walk over here, and these will start to kind of bend this way, which is, you know, slightly hazardous, but not the end of the world. It'll be okay. In fact, you can kind of fold the whole thing a little bit if you want to help, but you'll never get that peg in there if you do that. Anyway, I'm going to walk these the other direction because I like them to, well, it's easier to stand them on his butt like this. Anyway, I'm talking to myself. So I'm just bringing this over and forcing this in. And then we can bring these down and jam them in. You can see they could kind of bent up at an angle, unfortunately, but it's not too bad. You can work it out. And there, you know, there's the planet mode. We can turn on the little light. Ooh. That it pleases me to be the first, you know, that kind of shit. Anyway, you can sit there like that. Anyway, catch up on some comments. That's so cool that I get a tip. I didn't know there is a button that. Huh. Well, you were the very first person to ever tip me $5, so thank you so much. 991 Stupid. Freaking amazing. Good for you. I had 2 incidences this week where someone stole this video. They stole videos of mine. Not only took them, but in the case of this one, they edited out so the pilestrue down in the corner was mostly gone. And in those cases where the pilestrue did go on top of the figure, they blurred it out. So like they went out of their way to deny me credit for the video. If they had just left the pilestrue alone, I would have called it free advertising and moved on with my life. But I copyright struck them. Yeah, I'm sorry the stream is lagging. No, HasLab, like I said, I think they got the planet better. there were compromises made to this one's planet mode to have it be a perfect transformation. So I get that. There's people that like the Hasbro planet mode. There's people that say they're going to display the Hasbro one in planet mode. I mean, if it's no fun to transform and it only looks good in planet mode, then couldn't you just have like an injection molded, like just a planet? You know, like vacuum, like where they just fill up a mold. Just it could weigh like a pound, the whole thing. And you could have a planet mode Unicron. It could be as big as you wanted. It could be as big as a room or a car or whatever. But it's no fun to actually transform, and it's not impressive to transform. It's just a bunch of plates. So I don't know. I can't rationalize it. Does my Tour World Prime have a head that falls off? Mine can't be transformed without the head falling off due to gravity. I'm not sure. My head doesn't fall off. Oh, it definitely has to be slid forward. You have to slide it forward. You might check. There's supposed to be screws holding that set of rails on that it slides on. So maybe there's a screw missing. I don't know. Not the biggest fan of the planet's mouth. There are two types of people. The people who would compromise the robot for a mouth, and those who compromise the mouth for a robot. And I am on the mouth for a nice clean transformation robot camp myself. I think they did a great job with this. Fantastic. It's pretty spherical. Like, I think there's kind of an illusion that makes it look like the mouth area sticks out more, kind of like the old Armada Unicron, just embarrassingly stuck out more. But I don't think it really does. It just kind of looks like it does because it has all the extra stuff going on there. But it's kind of the same distance either way. So it's pretty spherical. Nice and spherical. Anyway, that took me over an hour to get through. Hope I didn't miss any important comments. Sorry. But hey, you want to get my attention, you send me one of those little paid comments. That's sweet. My very first paid comment. My first tip. I had a couple of people tip me using my YouTube or my PayPal link. And I did have a couple of Patreon supporters back when I was on Patreon. Maybe I'll do Patreon again. I don't know. I don't know what I would offer. Like, I would have one level. It'd be like, hey, give me money because you think I'm cool. Because, like, what else do I have to offer on Patreon? I mean, I guess I could live stream the editing process if people were that freaking fascinated. But I feel like I'd be giving stuff away, you know. Do I want to give stuff away? You know, give away my secrets, my trade secrets? I'm already pretty open about that, but there's secrets you don't know. Or maybe even worse, like if someone watched me actually do the editing, I'd be maybe even more afraid of someone going, "That's stupid. Why don't you do it this way?" You know, just show that I don't actually understand my tools as well as I would want. So I don't want to be critiqued on my process. Don't get reminded of the Michael Bay movie. My goodness, careful. Yeah, I noticed that. I discussed it at great length at the beginning of the video, how the whole thing is completely symmetric. Rewind when you get a chance, and I will discuss how the front and the back are the same. Would you use the blue panels for a more cleaner robot planet mode? Yeah, but except I'm not going to display them in planet mode ever. I guess that's a good point. You know what? I'm going to... Hello, I'm back. I'll discuss what he comes with. Oh my god. There's big parts that are hard to get out of the bag. So he comes with this. It's like it's like a copy of his mouth. I'll show you the other one. I'm not going to show you this one. And it also kind of looks like the blast of energy that came out of his mouth. But it also serves as a perfectly good display stand, so he doesn't have to lay around rolling around. So here's what the parts look like. There's slots in it to accommodate the wings. These are actually designed so you could plug them both together. Instead of using this as a base, you could use this as a base, but the way it would spread out from the weight, I don't like putting my expensive figures on a base that questionable. And here's what the mouth part looks like. You can peg these into the side instead of the wings. There's they don't really have pegs, but there's little tabs, there's little buttons, and that allows it to peg into the same hole that the wings would peg into. So there's that. And he comes with a plethora of plates, of course, 2 of each, basically. So, you know, like here's 2 identical plates. All they had to do was print this twice. One's for one arm, one's for the other arm. But they're gray plates, and of course, that would clean up the appearance, all the orange on robot mode, because you can replace this plate, of course this one, and then they come with replacements, even with little gray locking tabs that are stowed away, hard to get out. But the little locking tab is there too. But you can replace this plate. So if you wanted to display this in robot mode, you can replace these plates. They're very easy to replace. There's no screws required. They're friction pinned. It doesn't cause a problem, but they are friction pinned. And it would give you a more gray planet mode. But considering I don't need to transform or display him in planet mode, I'm not gonna. He came with the obligatory card, which is just basically the same thing as the front and back of the shipping box. Nothing too fancy. And he came with all these. He came with 8 of these little angled things. And they can actually be plugged into here. 4 slots there, so you can tab it in here. And it just gives it a little more hair. Gives it more spikes. They really get in the way trying to get stuff off. They're hard to deal with, so I don't use them. And I'm not going to display them in planet mode anyway, so they don't much matter. There are spikes that are folded up, so there's 2 here. They end up sticking straight out. They fall off the post easy, so I don't want to mess with them. And there's 2 that fit into this little channel that flip out. So you can have a nice hairy robot mode if you want to. There you go. Yeah, I figured you just joined. I was just teasing. I'm sorry, G1 Shock Blast. But yes, I went over it. The whole thing is symmetrical. I don't know. I mean, originally when I was looking for music, I like metal, like 80s hair metal kind of stuff. And of course, everything that's evolved since then. So that's my kind of music. And of course, the Transformers movie was very, Stan Bush and rock and roll. And so that's why I picked that style of music. And I just became enamored with the particular artist, Ethan Meixel. I don't know where the emphasis goes on the syllables, but that's his name. But that's why I went with the rock music. If you like classical music, you can just mute my video. One of the nice things I try to shoot for is that I'm showing, not telling. So if you're in any other language other than English, it doesn't matter because you're just watching. And of course, you can just mute the video and put your own music on there. Yeah, the spikes, they round out the planet mode. Yes, they're giant. Who lives on Unicron is what I want to know. Why does he have like little buildings and skyscrapers and stuff? Because like over here, you can see little buildings. He's got a lot of hair. On the back, not so much because it's smooth for whatever reason. But on the top and bottom, is little towers and stuff. Little skyscrapers all over Unicron. I like to think that he used to be a planet, but nothing lives on him now. Although it would be kind of fun to think of basically an entire race of robots living on Unicron that are like parasites or something, like fleas. Whew. Anyway, I'm exhausted. That's my workout for today. So, that's the end of the stream. Double check my messages, see if I missed any stupid calls. Nope. I'm free. Free for now. That's a shame, Andre. Whoever you shopped them through, you should be able to engage with them and get a part. Um, it can be hard though. It can take months to get a replacement part from especially the Chinese vendors, because they have to get it and then they have to. It's a long process. But you should be able to get replacement parts. Sometimes they'll offer you like a little money. I would hold off. I would hold out for as much money as possible if you want to go that way. But they'll offer you money for your inconvenience, and then you can decide. Like, especially if you have a problem where you can fix it yourself with some glue or something, then I don't recommend that you glue that head. But oh yeah, it came with a bunch of screw covers. Someone just mentioned that. I don't think you can see any of the screws from the outside anyway, because every part is symmetrical. Like like the top of the bicep. On one arm, the top of the bicep is smooth, and you can't see any screws. But on the other side, there's screws, like in the armpit. But that exact same arm is over here. So now the inside on the armpit is smooth, and the outside has screw holes. And they gave you a bunch. They gave a bunch of like little screw covers to fill in the screw holes. So you probably didn't even notice there were screw covers. They go really flush. Yes, Max Mox, very sciencey. For those not following along with the chat, it's believed mitochondria were once bacteria that had a symbiotic relationship with other bacteria. Maybe Unicron's antibodies are remnants of aliens who once lived on them. I like that. That's fun. Oh, he had those antibodies, didn't he? Yeah. Well, I mean, Travis Knight took over for doing the Bumblebee movie, and at first they lined it up so it could kind of be in the Bayverse, but it seems that they've decided on a full reboot. But I don't know. I feel like I saw a rumor that Michael Bay wanted to do another Transformer movie in his series, so maybe they're not done with it yet. It's hard to say. I just know they're a travesty of writing. I like the designs to some extent. I don't know that they have to be so busy. They got a little less busy as the movie series went on. They got a little less skeletal, so they're not as bad, but the plots of those movies are just so stupid. I'm sure Bay is working on ruining some other franchise. He ruined Turtles. He ruined Transformers. Hopefully, I don't need a My Little Pony Michael Bay movie. You leave My Little Pony alone. I don't. I'm not a brony. I'm sorry. I'm making a joke. The last thing I need is like Michael Bay's version of G.I. Joe, which I feel like we already kind of got that anyway. I hope the Snake Eyes movie is good. I get a little Scarlet. I couldn't find Destro, so I had to order him. The cons had no color in the first. Right? It's just one idiot, 20 something kid murders Starscream with that whole boy, you reminded me of something annoying. That's awful. Mark Drennan, $10. That's amazing, dude. Well, now there's like money in the hat. People are all excited. I want to get involved. I wonder how I actually get that money. I'm gonna have to read up on that. Anyone do paid super chat live streams and tell me how to actually get my $15? I don't know. Do they send me a check? I don't know how it works. Super appreciate it though, dude. That's awesome. MLP Bay film would be awesome. Stan Bush, right? Yeah. No, the someone 991 stupid gave me a $5. That was my first one. Mark has given me my second one for twice as much. So now I just need someone to bring me to donate $20, and then the next one $40, and the next one $80, and the next one $160, and the next one $320. If I just keep this chat running for a few minutes, I bet I'll be rich. Travis is making Megs 2 times bigger than Prime. Okay, cool. I think Megatron should be incredibly dangerous. Well, thank you. And also let me know if you see someone, if someone posts my video, if someone reposts my video and you can see my name in the corner, maybe just let me know about it. I'll be curious. But especially if people are editing my goddamn name out of the corner, I want to know about those people. Because I want to take them down. 991, stupid. All right, now this is getting out of hand. Who's coming along with the $40 donation? This is ridiculous. I get enough donations, I'll be able to buy a bonus figure and take pictures of it. I think you link your card up on your account. Yeah, or my bank information. I'm gonna have to ask. I bet now that there's like something in the pot, YouTube will be like, "Hey, let's set this up." I'm sure they'll be very friendly about it. I show them things like this Unicron are possible, or the crazy engineering on MP36 or 44. Yeah. Well, also remember, my primary purpose is to show the proper way to transform these things. Now, occasionally I'll forget a step somewhere and people call me on it. Super annoying, but I try to think out the most logical and clean and economical way to transform it. Which is why, for example, on this guy, I do these plates last or first, depending on your point of view. G1 Shot Glass like to see more mainline and Generations videos. Yeah, I mean, I do Studio Series because they're fairly complicated. I mean, I think this weekend I'm lined up to do Studio Series Scrapper, and it is so uncomplicated it's almost sad. It's gonna be like a 30-second video, including the speed runs. But I got to do it because I got to get them out of the way, so when Overload comes out, I can do Overload and finish off, you know, Devastator from the movies. And then, you know, the question is, you know, am I doing the really expensive version of that Devastator or not? I don't like how they say the Autobots are losing to the Decepticons, but Optimus 1 shoots Megatron with one hand. Lila's yelling. Peelis Drew, the reason Megs is supposed to be bigger is because of mass shifting. By the way, Trav's made Shockwave's thighs thick. Okay. Who doesn't like thick thighs on Shockwave, right? That sounds like a feature, not a bug. Turn this around. Actually do that all the time. Oof. I don't like the Bumblebee Soundwave design. I feel like I should write these donations down. I wonder if the YouTube keeps track of them for me. But it seems like the sort of thing I could make note of and give people a good little call out later on. Let's see. Stop motion. And pros and cons. Oh yeah, I was working it out. New Google Docs. We'll just make a little note here. Make a little notey note. Maybe I should do it in an Excel spreadsheet if I'm really ambitious. Okay. There it is. Okay. So my very first Super Chats donation, Super Chats, was on 7/8/2020, and it was $5, and it was by His name appears later too. 991 Stupid. Super awesome. And also on 7/8/2020. The magnificent Mark Drennan donated $10 to the cause. And on 7/8/2020, not to be overdone, 991 Stupid donated another $20. Although sadly no one went to 40 and then 80 and then 160 and then 320, in which case maybe you would see a Hasbro Unicron. Although I have to find out where to buy it at that point, but I have better stuff to do with my money anyway. Right? I mean, right, Mark? With donations like that, again, appreciate that. That's neat. Wait till I tell my wife I'm making money. Yeah, I bet Travis Knight would do a good job with any of the combiners. He doesn't seem quite as dedicated to make the bad guys look like monsters. He's just making them more humanoid. No, don't. No, I appreciate it, but I would be. It would make me kind of sad if someone threw 40. I'd be like, I'm not that good. Anyway, I do have to sign off. We're going to be having dinner soon. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you people. You're too kind, 991 Stupid. It's almost too late if someone's going to throw a whole bunch of money at me for no good reason. I do appreciate it. Help me buy robots or new equipment. You know what I dream of? If I made enough money, I want to get a robotic arm for the camera. This is my fantasy. There's people that make something similar to this, but this would be like the usability fantasy. But imagine having a camera mount on like one of those really good robotic arms, and being able to put the camera like in one position and be like, okay, that's the position, like maybe the current position, and then move the camera up to another position, and then have the robot arm calculate like a series of steps, and I could like turn the robot or whatever I needed to do. But imagine camera moves like that. They were like robotic stop motion camera moves. I try to reproduce it with my tripod and my turntable and my, I have a spreadsheet that helps me calculate Bezier like accelerating curves. Like you don't want the camera to just go, you want it to kind of start slow and then go fast and then go slow again. And so I try to do a spreadsheet. I don't use it very much. Most of the time I just kind of wing it. But fancy camera moves would be very cool. It's not a Transformers shelf, actually. I've got a curtain back there just to make it black. I'll give you a little clue. Where is my exposure button? See? But what's back there is actually Lego shelves. So there's try to get my finger. There's Jabba's sail barge, and there's Unikitty's like Happy World. And there's the spaceship from the big, and that's super nostalgic for me there. That Benny's spaceship from Lego Movie. Because when I was a kid, when I was like 11 playing with Legos, it was the space Legos that I was playing with. I still have a whole box of space Legos. But we got the Technic crane, and we got the shuttle from Overwatch. I've got all the Overwatch ones because I really like that. There's the Voltron one. A few minifigures, a remote control. There's some old school stuff up there. We got Mospeada jet. We've got the old G1 Jetfire up there. There's a Darth Vader helmet peeking out up there that I got in Universal City when I was like 12. Universal Studios in California. And my latest Black Widow action figure comes with a really cool display stand. And there's the quick tour, but there's no Transformers in here. Maybe next week, since Scrapper isn't very interesting at all to talk about, I guess I'll have to do a video scrapper, but maybe next week I will do a live stream from my cell phone in my Transformer room. It's a little disheveled, but you guys can handle it. You guys will put up with it okay, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I can... When I have enough money for a figure, I'll buy a figure, and then everyone that helped pay for that figure can get credit on that video. How about that? I'll pick... Or, I mean, I'm buying figures all the time anyway, but I'll give you credit for a figure. Yeah, Travis Knight does really good with his stop-motion movies. He's good with story. Bumblebee was a fairly simple story, but it was not inane like Michael Bay movies. I love your videos. Watch everything you put up. Yeah, I try. Thank you. How much is my collection worth? I tell you what, I've got boxes of Transformers because starting in 2001, with RID 2001, I've basically bought every Hasbro mold ever made since then. Except, recently when Cyberverse came out, I said no. So I don't have any Cyberverse figures. And I'm even thinking of dropping like the sort of Siege style line. Because they're very simple and hollow and not very... I mean, it's a lot to keep up with after a while. If you bought every figure, you'd have to do it full time. So I'd need a lot more donations before I did it full time. But I did skip out on Cyberverse. But I have everything else you can think of just about from 2001 to now. Just about everything you can think about. Which I guess is a lot. Didn't know you collected Lego. I mean, collectors collect. I'm like my mom in that sense. I kind of collect collections. I'm trying to keep it under control, but it's not working. I'm drowning. But I'm old. I've been doing it a little, one Transformer at a time for years and years and years. So I mean, it adds up, but it kept me out of the bars and whorehouses, though. So do you like the Omnibots? I don't know the Omnibots. What are you talking about? I don't have DX9 or Fans Toys versions of Mega Supreme. The only one I have is the Siege Mega Supreme, and it's it's okay. I like how the rocket ends up real long with the Siege one. I don't relish the idea of doing very large robots. Like this Unicron was at the very limit of what I could edit out. Because there's a lot you could see. I had to kind of edit the video to get the lights out of the video because I had to pull the camera so far back. This is the limit of my scale. At least the combiners that I'm doing, the only time I have to pull the camera back is when I just kind of finally put them together. I don't have to try to shoot a whole figure at that scale. Hot Wheels are cool. Yeah, I dig it. Good job. That's right. Oh, yeah, the mail-aways, sure. I mean, I think I had one or two of them. Yeah, Siege Omega is pretty cool. He's got the rocket is really rocket-shaped. Instead of being a stubby rocket, it's a nice long rocket. Pretty clever how they did that. I like it. There's other parts that are just kind of duh, but the rocket's cool. I thought about getting Scorponok. It's well, I've gotten all the other city bots, but I'm not going to get Scorponok. It's not worth the trouble for me. I just have to store it. I'm not going to love it. Wow. This has been a long stream. I really enjoy talking to you guys, but I do have to head out. Get ready for Din Din. This Sunday, I guess you should expect the Scrapper video. It'll be super exciting, and those of you that own Scrapper will finally know how to transform it, because it's so hard. I've got other stuff on the horizon, though. I've got things paid for but not shipped yet. I've got the Kang Toys Tantrum, whatever they call them, but the Kang Toys Bull, Bison, no, Water Buffalo. I don't know what the Predacon. And then I have also on the docket, I went ahead and pulled the trigger on, now that it comes with the repair parts, the Fans Toys tank. I love tank bots, Kapow, but I passed on it initially because it's going to be the first Fans Toys I've ever paid for. And I'm just not a big fan of Fans Toys. But I watched a video on it. It's fairly elegant. It's not quite as dumb as some of the Fans Toys stuff, so I'm going to do it. But those haven't shipped yet, so it's going to be weeks before I get those. So this week I'll get Scrapper out of the way. Just have an easy video after this one. And then maybe the following week I dive into the backlog. You know, I've never done Star Saber. That's a pretty big bot. Maybe I'll do Star Saber. I don't know. I'm going to get Scrapper out of the way this week. Nice and easy. Yeah, I am going to go. Thank you. Sorry. Well, thank you, 991 Stupid. I encourage people to use my content instead of the instructions because the instructions are really hard to comprehend sometimes. So I do the figuring out, and then you just follow my videos. Super easy, no problem. All right, gang. I appreciate everyone dropping by. Good Lord, I peaked out at almost 24 viewers on this one. This is the most participated live stream I've ever had. Plus, I made money off of it. Amazing. Super awesome, guys. Again, a big thanks to 991 Stupid and Mark Drennan for dropping me some change. Super awesome. And that's it for now. I'll talk to you next Wednesday, and maybe we'll do like a live stream from my Transformer room. You'll probably really enjoy that. It's messy, so don't yell at me, but I got a bunch of Transformers in there. Good night.